Hi. On this installment, I want to talk about some of the public schools that we went to. The first one was only a half a block from our house when we lived in Detroit, and that was Greenfield Park Elementary School.
Ah, yes.
Yeah. And in fact, do you remember the song for that?
Yeah.
Greenfield Park, oh Greenfield Park.
Mrs. White wrote it in our music class.
Did she really?
Yeah,
I didn't know
composed
that.
Picked it up right on the piano and wrote all their stuff.
Oh, wow.
For it.
I can still
Yeah.
repeat that by memory. Anyway, I won't. So, Greenfield Park went up through the 8th grade.
Yep.
And it was a little different than most others. But it was a lower middle class neighborhood. There wasn't, I don't know, I mean, it was okay as an elementary school. I think by the time I was in the 8th grade, we only had 2 black guys in the school, so it was pretty white. But outside of that, you know.
That would have been fine if they had more blacks in the school, but they, that gets into a whole nother issue of what was happening in Detroit at the time.
Sure, sure.
And the school had a lot of nice people in it, a lot of solid families. And when I say solid families, I mean, you know, kids that grew up in two-family or two-parent households.
Homes, yeah.
And we had a lot of friends. Of course, both of us did. Matter of fact, I knew Sherry Sewell, and you knew Harley Sewell.
Yes,
yes. And he was in Harley's class. Harley was in his classes. I was in Sherry's homeroom class. And there were some other folks, and I had a friend, Rodney Hurst, who got me interested in electronics. Matter of fact, you remember those helmets, jet helmets that Uncle Gar got for us?
No.
We had some old Air Force helmets that were given to us by Uncle Garfield, and we took them over to Rodney Hurst's house, and he took them to his friend Jerry Justman, who was into electronics, and they soldered the leads on them, and we could actually use the helmets, the earphones in the helmets, to listen to transistor radio. Yeah.
I'm glad I got you to remember that, because I sure didn't remember it.
Well,
wow.
Jerry Justman told us that matter of fact, Sandy Justman, his sister, was in our class with Rodney Hurst and me in the same homeroom. And what Jerry told us is, you're not going to have a high-quality sound with these things, you know. Well, I didn't know, but I wanted to see what we could do with them. So we fiddled around with them for a while. We painted them yellow. I mean, we got spray paint and painted them yellow, and we had 2 helmets.
And back then, that was radical stuff.
Yeah,
I mean, you didn't have, you know, nowadays you can
we
buy
had a
that.
Square 6-transistor radio and a plug
Oh, yeah,
into it.
I remember that, yeah.
And the batteries would go on those pretty quick. So.
And they were all made in Japan.
Oh, yeah, Toshiba.
Anyway, so then I went to Nolan Junior High. Now, when I went to Nolan, Tom was already at Cass Tech.
Yeah, I went to Nolan 2 years before.
Yeah. And whereas Greenfield Park was like a half a block away.
Yeah.
Nolan was 1.5 miles away.
Yeah, it was a good hike.
And
we walked.
And Dad didn't want us to pay bus fare, because we would have had to take 2 buses every day, we both took our books every single day, and I think we were the only people in the junior high that did that. I mean, maybe not. But
it was my first briefcase, you know. I overstuffed it, and it looked like it was going to rupture.
And my briefcase, it didn't even look like a briefcase. It looked like a small suitcase. It was a hard-sided thing.
Yeah.
And well, anyway, but Nolan was very integrated.
Yeah.
You know.
Yeah.
But then I went to Cass Tech in the 10th grade, and Cass Tech, I had to walk 1/2 mile to the bus stop.
Right.
Well, we did. And then we got on a city bus, and it was a 35-minute ride to downtown Detroit. And
you're talking about down 3rd Street?
Yeah.
Down 3rd Street, which is 2 blocks west of Woodward.
And we came back on 2nd Avenue, and that was just,
we came back we went down to from 3rd and 6 Mile, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And then we went, and then we came back on 2nd Avenue. Both of those were one-way streets
Yeah,
at the time. I
yeah.
think they still are. Came
Ca-
back to Woodward and walked home from there.
Cass was a great school. It doesn't exist anymore. They tore
the
down the
same
building.
building, yeah.
They built
Put it in
another
another
building,
building.
and they call it Cass Tech, but it's not Cass
Not
Tech.
the same.
No.
This building had been up from 1917 till when we were there, and
Yeah.
right after you graduated, I think they tore it down. Or
No, they didn't tear it down I thought they tore it down in like 2005.
Oh, okay.
I read something about that.
Yeah.
But it had 8 stories to it
Yeah.
and 3 basements, and this is really going to sound impossible. It had 3 elevators
Yeah.
with full-time elevator operators.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I mean, and there were almost 5,000 students there.
It was a big school. The floor layout was good sized. I mean, that's why you could stuff that many students in there.
Yeah, yeah.
It wasn't just a
And
small building, it was a big building.
A friend of mine, and I knew you had to have special grades to get in there, but
Yeah.
I didn't know you had to have an IQ of 125, and a friend of mine told me that here just a few months ago, and I was like, really? I never knew that. I never knew what my IQ was.
I didn't know what mine was either. I don't want to know what it is either.
But it was the 4th best public high school in the nation.
Yeah, and that was real good for a Detroit school at that
It
time.
was
Yeah.
incredible.
Because a lot of the suburban schools were coming up and doing real good, and people were putting a lot of money into them, and they've since done quite well. But for Detroit, that was the best school.
Yeah, and they destroyed it. Shortly after I left, they watered it down. Anyway,
Yeah.
in a regular high school at the time, they had 3 curriculums. You had college prep curriculum, you had a business curriculum, and you had a vocational curriculum.
Yeah.
At Cass, we had 31 different curriculums, and they were all college prep.
Yeah.
And we even had one curriculum called air conditioning and refrigeration.
Yes, we did.
And it was
some of the guys that
college prep.
graduated from that are excellent air conditioning, both for
Yeah.
men and designers.
Now, I was in the chemical biological curriculum, which was a really tough curriculum. Tom, which one were you in?
Astronautics, which is another word for aerospace. They called the curriculum, it originally was called aeronautics. They changed it in 1965, the year I went there, or graduated there, to astronautics. We started in 63 and I graduated in 65.
Okay.
So, but that meant aerospace.
Yeah, there were, boy, the memories we had down there. I remember right across from Cass Tech, there was this really seedy hotel.
Yeah.
And I mean, it was seedy.
Yeah.
I mean, it was, it had prostitutes and drunks going and coming all the time. Do you remember the kitty corner to Cass was that park?
Yeah.
Do you remember what they called that?
Cass Park.
Well, it was Cass Park, but
Yeah.
what did the students call it? Hobo Hall.
Yeah.
You know.
Instead of Hobo Hall.
Yeah. Back then, they didn't call them homeless people; they called them hobos. So,
Yeah.
Cass was not in a very good
It was in a rough
neighborhood
area
at
of
all.
town.
Yeah.
But yet there were a lot of businesses as you headed toward Woodward.
Yeah, yeah.
There was much more
There were.
of the business community, and it was around Cass Tech too, to some extent.
Yeah.
And so it wasn't like it was just a total wreck. There was a poor section of town immediately north of there, between there and Wayne State. So
Yeah.
up to Grand Boulevard, and then as you proceeded northward from there, it was Highland Park.
Yeah.
And
Which wasn't great. You know that you get I don't want to sound too uppity here, but you get a bunch of smart kids together. Your sports teams are not going to be the greatest.
right,
And
that
our
would be putting
sports
it mildly.
our sports teams were not the greatest
No,
at
they were the
all.
worst.
I think in my senior year, our football team was 3 wins, 3 losses, and 1 tie.
Yeah.
You know.
That sounds about right.
But I had a guy in my class in his senior year. this guy entered the math competition for the state of Michigan. He came in first place, and I heard that the second place guy was not even close.
Wow.
So, you know, he went on to be a physics professor at Johns Hopkins University and is one of the leading physicists in the study of gravity.
When you were talking math, you were talking algebra and trigonometry too. It wasn't just 1 and 1 equals 2.
Right.
Yes, you had business math for the business curriculums, but and that was fine and it was adequate. But even that was advanced at Cass. They had a good school.
Yeah, they did, and it's too bad that it happened the way it did. But you know, one of the things I learned from going to Cass Tech was that you want to surround yourself with like-minded people who are very positive, because they will call out the excellence in you. And that's what they did at Cass Tech. You were around all these people that were there for one reason, to get an education.
Yeah.
And it showed in everything we did. And, you know, I kind of took that lesson, and as my life progressed, I noticed that even when I went to college, I had a group of like-minded people. And the big thing is, when I became a Christian and I started going to this one California Bible college, Bible study sort of thing, again, I'm around like-minded people who really encouraged me to go deeper in the Lord. They were able to give me some direction, and that's what I love about being part of a good Bible teaching church, and especially like Patty and I are in a small group at our church, and we walk through life with these people.
Yeah,
I mean, they pray for us, they encourage us, they'll support us, and that is really important. And I think of the eternal state of heaven. I think everybody's going to be like that.
I think so too, and I think one of the important things for Christians is making sure you're in a good, solid fellowship. And when I became a Christian, I made it a point of making sure that the people I associated with and my friends and so on, and the people that I made friends with, were in the Christian community. Now, that's not to say I didn't have friends outside of it. I did.
Right.
But the point is the fellowship is extremely important.
Yeah.
We need the fellowship. Some people say, well, I can get on my own. Yeah, if you need to in an emergency, sometimes you can for a while, but it's not good to do it on a long period of time.
Right.
We're in a world that's in rough shape, to put it mildly, and Bible prophecy has a lot to say about that, and it's good that people will be looking up.
Yeah, and it's good to have people encourage you and to walk with you and things like that. So, well, that's a little about the public schools we went to. We'll talk to you next time.